Okay, I'll call the meeting to order and ask for confirmation of the agenda. Councillor Milligan, Councillor Woodcock, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. I should note that Councillor Fenwick emailed he's been delayed. He may be up to a half hour late. Any conflicts of pecuniary interest to declare? None declared. Business to be considered, the 2025 draft budget. The recommendation is that this 2025 general levy for operating and capital budgets be received as follows. A township operating tax levy requirement of $5,386,802.89. Better put my glasses on to get this exactly right. A township capital tax levy requirement of $1,755,906.80, and the special Newburgh waste levy requirement of $10,789.62, and that the general 2025 tax rate for operating and capital budget be received as follows. A township operating and capital residential tax rate of 0.007017772, and the Newburgh rate of 0.000144426, and that a public meeting be held on Monday, March 17th, 2025, to present this draft budget, and that staff post notice of intention to adopt the 2025 budget, and 5, that the bylaw to adopt the 2025 budget be brought to the April 7th, 2025 council meeting for adoption. Just to clarify, by putting this motion on the floor, we are not approving this draft, we are putting it up for discussion. Yes.
Do you want to wait until after the presentation, and then if there's any changes within the recommendation, we can just include?
Sure. So hold that thought. So at this point, we can start with the budget presentation. CAO White, are you going to lead the charge?
Yes, I am.
Great. It's on you.
Thank you, Reeve Wise, and through members of council and residents and staff. Thank you for coming together tonight to review the 2025 draft budget. Before we dive into the details, I just want to take a moment and express my gratitude to our management team, dedicated departmental staff who have put a lot of hard work into this presentation, and you'll see the results of that hard work as we go through this presentation. Preparing the budget has been a significant undertaking involving a number of internal meetings and careful considerations of the township's needs and priorities. Through this process, our focus has been transparency and fiscal accountability and ensuring responsible investments that will benefit the community as a whole. As we navigate through the budget, you'll see the decisions have been made with the best interests in Stone Mill's mind. We are committed to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars and delivering high quality services through that the residents deserve. First overview slide. Our primary commitment through this process has been maintaining transparency and clear communication. We believe it's essential for both council and our community to fully understand how their tax dollars are being utilized in 2025. To that end, this overview will provide a detailed look at the township's financial status, including the revenue sources, expense allocations, significant investments, and by the end of the presentation, you'll have a clear picture of where we stand and how we plan to move forward in the coming year. Next slide. On our first slide, we have the summary of expenses as they're allocated into the major areas. Each department has conducted a review of their upcoming financial needs, and the budget has been categorized into demand areas such as capital investment, labor and personnel costs, contracted services, materials and supplies, external obligations, financial obligations. As you can see, the summary of expense allocations in 2025 takes into account a wide range of costs and external from external transfers like Quinte Conservation and OPP levies to internal transfers between departments. This holistic view helps us understand the full scope of financial responsibilities and planning accordingly. If council has any questions as we go through the slides, feel free to raise a hand and we can address as needed. So now that we've taken a look at what our expenses are, we have to look at where we intend to draw for revenues. Having a clear understanding of our revenue sources is just as crucial as knowing our expenses in 2025. We work to leverage several key funding streams, including grants, transfers from reserves, user fees, permits, and property taxation. It's important to note that approximately 44% of this year's revenue comes from municipal tax levies. This highlights the significant role that taxes play in funding township operations and capital projects, but it also demonstrates that there's a number of other revenue sources that fund these operations. In total, we anticipate revenues of approximately $16.3 million in 2025, which fully matches our projected expenses. As a municipality, we're required to prepare and maintain a balanced budget each year, ensuring that we live within our means and make responsible financial decisions. Diversifying our revenue sources and carefully managing our expenses means we can provide services and infrastructure to our community needs while working to minimize the burden on taxpayers. Next slide, please. In 2010, the township secured an Infrastructure Ontario loan and to support capital improvements included were Dewey Road and the construction of the Public Works Garage. This loan is being repaid through the Canada Community Building Fund, previously known as the Federal Gas Tax Grant. Each year we make an annual repayment of $108,000, which covers both principal and interest on this loan. 2025 will mark the final year of payment on this debt, and by concluding this financial obligation, we'll be in a stronger position moving forward for greater flexibility in future budget year planning. This milestone is a testament to the commitment we have here to financial responsibility and strategic planning. Any questions? As we go into individual service areas, we start with government, general government. Look at one of our key funding sources for our township is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, or OMPF. This provincial grant provides support to rural municipalities across Ontario, including Stone Mills. In 2025, we will receive approximately $1.1 million from OMPF, which represents a 4.73% increase over last year's allocations. In dollar terms, this is an additional $51,000, bringing us from just under $1.1 million in 2024. It's important to note that OMPF is not a guaranteed funding source, and the amount we receive from year to year is based on a variety of factors, including changes in provincial policy and the overall health of the Ontario economy. Yep.
Unless I'm mistaken, and perhaps Treasurer Raymond can correct me if I'm wrong, that fund allocation actually declined for a year or two. Is that not right? So it's not as though this is like, oh, we get a regular increase to this fund. It's been going down. Now it's been bumped up a little bit. Thank you.
On the next, general government continued. As mentioned earlier, the Infrastructure Ontario loan, the township has been making annual debt repayments for the Dewey Road and Public Works Garage, and 2025 is our final year for payment. That payment consists of $104,000, almost $105,000 in principal, and $3,250 in interest. Again, this is a significant milestone for the township as it represents the successful conclusion of this financial obligation, and we don't have much other debt on the books. Having little to no debt on our books means that we have a greater ability to borrow funds in the future if necessary, whether it's an emergency, repair, or strategic investment for the community. Next slide, please. Another funding source is a Community Vibrancy Agreement, or CVA, which is a unique revenue stream for the township, generated by Blue Earth Renewable Energy Project. In 2025, we would receive $145,000 from this agreement, which will be in place until 2035. What's notable about the CVA is how in the past it's been strategically allocated. These funds so that they can maximize their impact. Traditionally, revenue is divided into 3 equal parts, each serving a specific purpose. 1/3, approximately $48,000, is used to offset capital costs such as the arena backup generator as proposed here. Another third is used directly to subsidize the municipal tax rate. Means that our residents see a direct benefit from the CVA in the form of lower taxes. And the final third, approximately $48,000 again, would go into our solar and community development reserve. This reserve currently sits at about $209,000, and is used for future allocations of project that benefit the community. And in 2025, we plan to use about $5,000 from this reserve to support the fire fit event. By splitting the CVA revenue in this way, we ensure that benefits are felt across the community in both short-term through tax subsidies and long-term through strategic investment in our facilities and programs. Next slide. Any questions? Administration continued. In 2019, the province provided the municipalities with municipal modernization funding to help streamline and improve service delivery. As of 2025, the Municipal Modernization Fund reserve has a balance of approximately $436,000. From this reserve, we plan to allocate funds for several key initiatives. $20,000 for council chamber upgrades to create a more professional, functional meeting space. $30,000 for a strategic plan and organizational review to help set clear priorities and to ensure our municipal structure is efficient and effective. And then $25,000 for township-wide compensation review to help ensure that wages or structures are fair, competitive, and in line with municipal best practices. In addition to these initiatives, we had previously planned to undertake an asset management plan project in 2024. However, due to various factors, the project is now going to be undertaken in 2025. And then to avoid this year's tax levy, we will access $50,000 from the Stability Reserve Fund to complete this work. The asset management plan is a critical tool for the township, helping to understand conditions, values associated to our infrastructure, and to plan effectively for future maintenance and replacement needs. Also, by completing this plan, we will work to meet provincial legislative requirements, ensuring that we are in compliance with all relevant regulations. And the asset management plan for Ontario is set its final phase in 2025, which would be phase 4, I think, or 5. And then in 2024, under our wages for full-time, council approved 2 positions that were partially funded for 2024, the Chief Administrative Officer position and the Executive Administrative Assistant position. And having been only funded for the portion of the year in 2025, we are now allocating the full year salaries for both these positions, and it contributes to the increase you're seeing coming from 476 to 489 in 2025. In addition to our full-time staff, the township also relies on part-time and contracted positions to support administrative functions. In 2024, we've allocated $31,996 for these part-time wages. A significant proportion of this budget goes towards a records clerk position. This contract role, with a maximum of about 24 hours a week, has been instrumental in helping us manage our historical records, both from the current township and pre-amalgamation municipalities. As council is aware, this work has already seen greatly improved organization within our records, accessible to making those records accessible. However, there is still a considerable amount of work to be done to fully modernize and integrate all of our records from the past. Fortunately, we have access to an experienced individual who is familiar with our system and continues to do this important work. And by investing in this position, we are demonstrating a commitment to effective records management and prudent stewardship of municipal information assets. In addition to the records clerk, we've also applied for funding for the summer student position in our administration. This student will provide additional capacity during the summer months and gain valuable municipal administration experience. By leveraging part-time contracts strategically, we can address specific needs and backlogs in the administration side of the house here without adding permanent costs to the budget. This approach allows us to be nimble and responsive to evolving needs in our organization.
Do we have any idea of the timeline for the records clerk? Is it a full year's assignment, or do we have is there an end date?
Through your revise, it's anticipated, so right now we have about 3 outside locations that we're hoping to clear out, get all the records under one house. So I'm anticipating that by the end of the year, they should be removed from the locations and sorted.
Insurance, if we go to the next slide. Did I skip one? I did. Contracted services, my part. In addition to our staff costs, the administration budget also includes a number of contracted services that support regular operations in the municipality. In 2025, there's an allocation of $125,000 for these services. This budget line item covers a range of items from our security alarm system, copier contracts, document storage, and mailing services. While some of these are small individually, they do add up to a significant costs or part of our essential day-to-day operations. In addition to these ongoing services, the 2025 budget also includes one-time initiatives aimed at improving our organizational efficiency and effectiveness, again referring to the strategic plan and organizational review, compensation review, and the update to the asset management plan. The asset management plan, again, would be bringing us up to date in compliance with the Ontario Regulation 533/17. Any questions?
Yeah, I just had a note here in regards to, I'm sorry, you might get a little ahead of me there. The summer student that we have for administration, the fund is applied for, when do we know for sure when that's going to be?
Yeah, the grant program is not really has a good track record for early notice on that. A lot of times, I've seen the grant approvals come through after the fact, after either a position's been filled or the employees started already. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith when you're applying for some of these grants. Okay, insurance. Insurance is a significant cost for any municipality, but Stone Mills is no exception. In 2025, just under administration alone, there's $25,000 for department-specific insurance costs. Our municipal insurance policy renews on April 1st each year. And we, stay in touch with our insurance provider to keep track of what to expect and make sure that we have appropriate coverage for all our operations. In 2024, our total insurance premium was $332,000. Based on discussions with the provider and trends in the municipal insurance market, we are anticipating about a 10% increase in 2025. This would bring our total premium up to approximately $366,000, an increase of $33,242. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Wenda.
So 10% is quite a bit of an increase, and is there a point in time, can I direct my question to Anita? Is there a point in time, Anita, a percentage when we would look at that and decide that we need to go out and get other quotes on this insurance?
Through you, revise. Normally, every 3 to 5 years, we look at different avenues, whether it's insurance or legal or different specific contracted service that we do, and we would go out for an RFP.
Would this fall into that? Like, how long have we been in a relationship with this particular vendor?
Sorry, but I don't know the answer to that question at the moment. I'd have to do a little research. There are few insurance companies that will actually insure municipal governments. I do know that. So, yeah.
And it's also important to note that we have a broker who is packaging together a number of insurance products, and so they're sometimes changing out individual products for us depending on our needs. Another broker may be accessing the same products. So it's a small market, I guess, and there's not a lot of competition, and we also typically would know among our peers if they're all seeing the same kind of increases if we're in line or getting something completely different than our neighbors, which I don't get the impression that anybody's seen small insurance increases over the last few years.
Go ahead, Doug.
I believe unless things have changed, the last time we went out for insurance, the broker that received the insurance, there's only 2 companies that will insure municipality. He has both of them. So he gives us the best deal he can get from the 2 of them. But he carries McDougal on one side, and the 2 companies are under one ownership, and he carries both of them. Kind of a funny situation.
Yeah, it's called a monopoly. It would be interesting, I mean, this 10% is actually about average these days for an insurance increase. I think we've seen 19% one year, I can't remember exactly. It would be interesting to do a projection based on 10%, where we'll be at in 5 years, or 10. Every 8 years it's a double. Pretty much. 10% on 10% on 10%. There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, hold on to your hats. Yeah.
No problem. We can go to the next slide. For council budget, wages have been adjusted to 137,000 for this line item. This includes the 3% increase over 2024, and this increase is in line with the overall compensation increase calculated in this budget and ensures that our elected officials are compensated with growth. Conventions and training, our current policy, each member is allowed to attend 2 training sessions or conferences per year. In 2024, we spent about 17,000 on this line item, and in 2025, it's been adjusted to 20,000. This increase reflects a commitment to ongoing education and development of our council members and ensuring that they have the knowledge and skills necessary to effectively serve the community. It's worth noting, though, council members have typically only attended 1 training session or conference per year, despite the policy for allowing for 2. It appears to me this demonstrates council's commitment to financial responsibility and prudent use of taxpayer dollars. And then in 2024, we've budgeted $12,000 under the donations line items, and I just wanted to make note that it's important to understand that when council chooses to waive or forgive user fees for a community group or event, that this is considered a donation accounted for in this budget line item. Any questions?
Conventions, I think that should be restated to reflect the current practice. We need to change that manual. It's wrong. The current practice is 1 convention or $20,000. It's not 2 automatically. So I think that should be changed to reflect the current position.
So is that a motion to change the policy?
To sort of add on to what Doug is saying, I think historically there was a certain number allotted per councillor, and that could be one larger conference would take that budget, or it could be smaller items. And I understand that I think this is the way it's interpreted currently, but you would know better than me what that historical number was. Because the idea was that if you did a big conference, that would probably take your whole budget. But if you did a smaller one and an online training or something, then you could do a mix. That's what my understanding is, but it's probably never been written down. that way, so just,
The current practice is that there's a top-line budget, and that works out to one council, one convention per person of the larger conventions. We have an underlining policy to that, that if somebody didn't use their money, or as Krista Lee just said, if they attended seminars, which are a lot cheaper, that they could go to more than one. But I just think leaving it at two is misleading, because it's not two major conventions, okay?
Is there clarity on that, Jason?
So
I can work with
I did talk to Councillor Davison about this, and the agenda was already published, so the presentation wasn't updated. The version of the policy that currently exists on our records specifically says two, and that's why I went out of my way to say that the practice of council has been one. I think if the policy needs to be changed, we can bring that policy back to council with a regular meeting and get that policy updated with direction from council at the time. Because I think there's even still a little bit of room for interpretation between what Councillor Woodcock was explaining and specifically what the policy says right now. And if we explicitly say one, then we got to stick to one with, and if there's going to be some given pull on cheaper versus the policy should reflect that accurately so that we're all on the same page, because it is a little bit confusing when practice and policy don't align.
So your motion could be that, let's review, bring it back. Any further discussion? All in favor? No, sorry, go ahead.
Reeve
Mary.
Wise, can I
Yeah.
just, for clarity in the minutes and staff direction, is the motion that council directs staff to bring back an updated policy, or is it just bringing back for review? Do you want an example policy?
the policy to reflect current standards, and we'll have to rate current standards, and just, the current practice.
And can we get a seconder for that, please?
I think we had Crystal.
Crystal Lee, okay.
Okay, we know what we're doing? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Go ahead, Jason.
Make sure I'm on the right slide here. Elections. As we look ahead, 2026 is an election year. It's important that we plan and budget accordingly. So although this year is not an election year, we do have 11,000 being transferred to our elections reserve. This transfer ensures that we are setting aside funds each year to cover the cost of an upcoming election rather than facing one large one-time expense in the election year. Excuse me. Our election reserve will be used to cover various election-related expenses such as advertising and technology investments and other expenses. By contributing annually, we do spread this cost out. In addition to the reserve transfer, 2025 also budgets expenses for contracted services related to the election. Specifically, we have prepaids for some of our election software, data fix and voter view, and a televote, I think, is the other one that we maintain throughout the between elections. This, again, software is critical for a smooth operation and preparation for an election year. So it's worth noting that the election management software is not included in the reserve transfer. It's a separate budget item, and both expenses are part of our overall budget planning for this year. Information technology. Becoming a bigger part of any modern organization, and we are no exception. In 2025, we have budgeted $115,000 for contracted IT services to ensure our systems are reliable, secure, and up to date. The budget covers a wide range of services, including software licensing that is essential to day-to-day operations. We also invest in redundancy measures like backup internet to our office if our primary internet goes down. And this is an example how we prioritize some resilience and reliability of the entire IT infrastructure. A significant portion of our IT budget goes towards annual software licenses that are key for key systems like our accounting software, or SIST, our geographic information system, GIS or ESRI, council management software on iCompass, and our human resources tools like HR downloads. In addition to this, we invest in productivity and collaboration tools like Office 365 and Zoom, which have become more increasingly important since the pandemic. These tools allow our staff to work remotely when necessary and collaborate seamlessly across departments and external partners. We also budget for services like Wi-Fi in the Newburgh and Enterprise Halls, so that ensuring residents and community groups can stay connected while using our facilities. A portion of our IT budget goes towards contracted services so we have expert support available when we need to access them and to keep things running smoothly. Next slide for, yep.
Yeah, Starlink. I think we have we had a motion to review our purchasing policy, given the whole tariff onslaught and the billionaire that's running the government down there. I hope that the Starlink will be part of that review. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Wendy?
This is really minor, but I think ExploreNet changed their name to Explore.
Yeah, they did. Information technology continued. We have our materials and supplies at about $45,000. This is a budget that's focused on ensuring staff have access to the resources they need, including some replacement of computers. As our Microsoft likes to end of life certain products, it makes us in a position where we have to upgrade certain pieces of equipment in order to stay on a currently supported version of things like Windows. And the same thing is true for our staff cell phones, mobile devices. For many of our staff, particularly those who work in the field, budgeting for phone replacements ensures that we have staff on reliable and up-to-date devices, allowing them to stay connected. We also are looking at in 2025 to include funds to expand public Wi-Fi at the Stone Mills Recreation Center. This is some feedback that we've had for quite some time, that building doesn't provide great access to cellular connections when you're inside a giant tin can. So we're looking forward to being able to offer public Wi-Fi in that facility soon. And then there is a bit of unpredictability as technology changes. For this budget, we set aside a general amount for equipment replacement needs and be able to absorb unexpected demands on our IT resources. Any questions? Fire administration. Just looking at some of the revenue from coming from internal transfers and reserves. We have about $5,000 transferred from the Community Vibrancy Fund to support the 2025 Fire Fit event. This is an event that Council approved via resolution, and it's an excellent opportunity to showcase the fire department and promote fitness and camaraderie among our firefighters. In addition to the internal transfer, we're also drawing $194,000 from our reserves for critical fire department needs. This includes $96,000 from the fire equipment reserve to replace aging portable radios, ensuring that our firefighters communicate effectively during emergencies. We also are transferring $87,000 from the fire capital reserve to replace a utility truck. This vehicle is essential for transporting equipment and personnel to and from emergency scenes. And then finally, we are drawing $11,000 from the Fire Fit reserve to further support the 2025 Fire Fit event, which was built up over previous budgets. Any questions? Go ahead.
Hopefully no static this time. Just a quick question in regards to this. So obviously we're in discussions as we speak. until this is carried and passed and we authorize these purchases, are these going to be subject to the dreaded tariffs down the road, or have we got commitment to these where we're locked and loaded and we don't have to be fearful of that?
No, this is strictly for the most part, predicted budget.
Of course.
None of the purchases have been finalized, or in some cases, we have a full year to execute on what we plan to do in the budget. I will kind of speak to some of the concerns of unpredictable costs by the end of the year.
Okay, no problem. Just wasn't sure if we have a relationship with some of these vendors where they offer some sort of a locked-in pricing as soon as we show interest. Sometimes that occurs. Thank you.
Wage breakdown within the fire administration budget. For full-time wages, we have a budget of $138,000, which includes 90% of the deputy chief's salary. That's been adjusted up from 80% in 2024, reflecting a shift in time commitment in the role and shifting responsibilities from other areas that we're being focused on. It also includes 30% of the fire chief's salary and 10% of the administration staff's salary, representing times that these individuals are dedicated to the fire department's matters. It's worth noting that our actual full-time wage costs in 2024 were $124, lower than the budgeted amount of $135 last year. Moving on to part-time wages, we have budgeted $290,000. The vast majority of this is for part-time volunteer firefighters. Again, these guys are the backbone of the fire service. The budget has to account for fluctuations in call volumes, training requirements, and these two things can significantly impact part-time wage costs. Any questions on that? In addition to wages, the fire administration budget also includes significant costs for contracted services and materials and supplies. We have budgeted $130,000 for contracted services, includes a wide variety of services, including oxygen cylinder rentals, testing of the SCBAs, ladder testing, hose testing, maintenance of the breathing air systems, medical waste disposal, dispatching services, emergency reporting software, fire service management consulting, and development of the fire master plan. It's worth noting that we budgeted $65,000 for contracted services in 2024 and actually spent $66,000, a slight overage due to some of the unpredictable nature of these things, such as repairs and maintenance. In addition, in 2024, budget included a separate line item for dispatching services. It was $21,000. And then for 2025, this has been merged into the overall contracted services budget for simplicity. Moving on to materials and supplies, we have budgeted $91,000. This is in line with last year's budget of $90,000, which spent about $88,000. This budget line is essentially an annual allotment for replacement and maintenance of fire equipment and gear, hoses, nozzles, uniforms, a myriad of other essential items for safe and effective operations of our fire department. That's just, again, it's important to understand that much of the equipment has a limited lifespan and is also subject to harsh conditions that they're exposed to. So regular replacement and maintenance tends not to be optional, and they're necessary that our firefighters have the tools they need to do their job safely and effectively. Linda?
I thought we talked about portable radio replacement back under a separate agenda item, and I just wondered, yeah, so under 205, transfer from reserves,
So that,
replacement,
yeah.
portable radios, 96, so why are we seeing it again?
So that's showing where it's coming in reserves, or
Right.
coming in as revenue, and how it's going to be going out as an expense. So
Gotcha.
it's kind of, we do touch on a lot of things twice because we're sort of saying here, tipping our hand as to why we're pulling from reserves when we go through the revenue items, and then we actually say where it's going to be expensed later in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
So that's an in and out, essentially. Machinery and equipment. Capital investments. For this year's budget, there's a total of $260,000 in this category. This largest single item is $96,000 for the replacement of these portable radios, as mentioned, and are being funded from the fire equipment reserve, which has been built up over time for investments like this. Reliable and effective communication is necessary, and the radios are, I think, towards the end of their life and due for replacement. In addition to the radio replacement, there's $59,000 for annual bunker gear replacement. Again, bunker gear is personal protective equipment that firefighters wear when responding to fires and other hazardous situations, and includes things like helmets, jackets, pants, boots, and gloves. Just double checking I'm getting the right list. Like much of our equipment, bunker gear has a limited lifespan. Intense heat and exposure to hazardous material gradually degrades the qualities of these gears. In this year, the $59,000 for bunker gear replacement is being funded through tax levy. This is an ongoing predictable cost that we budget for each year and ensures the safety of our firefighters. Finally, we budgeted $48,000 for a bunker gear extractor, specialized equipment in cleaning and decontaminating bunker gear after it's been exposed to smoke, chemicals, and other hazardous substances. Proper cleaning of this gear helps increases longevity, but also is good for the health and safety of our firefighters, as contaminants can linger in gear and sometimes lead to long-term health issues if not properly removed. The purchase of the bunker gear extractor is partially being funded by the fire protection grant, and the remainder will be coming from the tax levy. Grant funding allows us to make a better investment in the equipment available to our firefighters. Next slide. Capital investments in vehicles. In 2025, we have budgeted $87,000 for the purchase of a new 3/4 ton pickup truck. This vehicle will replace an existing 2002 model known as UT721, which has reached the end of its serviceable life. Again, utility vehicles like this pickup truck are essential. They transport personnel and equipment to and from emergency scenes, help conduct inspections, investigations, and support training and outreach to the community. The $87,000 for this vehicle replacement will come out of the fire capital equipment reserve. Once again, it demonstrated a proactive financial planning. By setting aside funds in this reserve over time, we are able to make necessary vehicle purchase without sudden and large impacts on the budget for tax rates. In addition to the vehicle purchase, fire administration budget also includes transfers to reserves, including totaling $161,000. The largest portion of this, $112,000, is going to fire vehicle reserve. Transfers in line with our 15-year emergency vehicle and equipment replacement plan, which was approved by council in 2017. We're also transferring $48,000 to the fire equipment reserve. This reserve has seen funds replacement of smaller but still essential equipment items like portable radios and breathing apparatus. And finally, transferring $12,500 to our fire fit reserve, and that's coming out again later in the year to support that event. Any questions?
I'd just like some clarification on line 5901, the first line, 15-year Township Stone Mills Emergency Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Plan. I don't remember 15 years unless I'm reading it the wrong way. Always was a 20-year plan to replace vehicles, capital vehicles.
Through your worship, the only plan I have goes out 15 years, so,
It goes out 15 years, but
Yeah.
the replacement plan of the vehicles is 20 years.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly, yes.
okay.
Yeah, so the plan goes out 15 years, but there's, so 20 years for pumpers, 25 for tankers, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that 15-year is more of a forecast rather than a schedule for. Yeah, yeah, an important distinction to make. Next slide. We're good for that? Good. Yep. Police services, we have two main components to this. We have allocated $6,500 for services related to the administration of the Police Services Board. This was established in 2024 as a civilian oversight, I guess, component to delivering police services to the community. The $6,500 will cover various administrative expenses. The second larger component is the police levy. The levy is set to be $1.1 million. This represents a significant increase of $77,000 over the 2024 budget of just over $1 million. Just the police levy is something that is set independently of the township. And the levy is determined by the Ontario Provincial Police based on their cost of providing services to our community. As I gather, when OPP costs go up due to wage increases, equipment purchases, or changes in service levels, costs are passed on to each municipality they serve. Not much to say there. Under the conservation authorities, we have a total levy of $120,000. This includes a general levy of $103,000 from Quinte Conservation's operational expenses and capital asset management levy of $17,000 for long-term infrastructure planning. Compared to 2024, the levy of $115 represents a year-over-year increase of $5,123, or approximately 4.4 cents, while any increase is notable. The Conservation Authority provides the municipality with a number of services, and they manage our watersheds, protections against floods, and natural resource risk management. Go ahead.
I'm not sure where I saw it, but as I was flipping through the more in-depth side of our budget here, I thought I saw a number of 190,000 in regards to the Conservation Authority. Does that sound familiar to anybody? And I wasn't sure what the differentiation would be.
I believe that's in the next slide.
Oh, there we go.
Additional to the annual levy, the Conservation Authority's budget also includes transfers to reserves for 2025. There's a total of $69,000 being transferred to support capital projects and improvement within the Conservation authorities. And the majority of this transfer is $59,000 and is allocated to Quinte Conservation for water control infrastructure, capital asset management, and supports long-term maintenance and upgrades of vital flood control and water management infrastructure. A further $10,000 is being set aside for improvements to the Cataraqui Trail, which is managed by the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority. The popular trail is a significant recreational asset in our area. Funding is expected to help support the Archer Bridge deck repair, as I understand it. It's important to note that these reserves are not new costs, but continuation of long-term amounts. With the 2025 transfer, our total revenues of the Conservation Authority will stand at $159,000 for Quinte Conservation and $53,000 for Cataraqui Conservation. That gets you to the, I believe that's what you're referring to as 194.
It was 190 even, but I'm assuming that's probably what I'm seeing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just it's not a typo. It's just an error in naming. Under the Cataraqui Trail, it refers to the Cataraqui Region Conservation Area. It should be the Conservation Authority.
Good catch. Thanks for the clarification.
It's a common one.
Any questions? Okay. Moving on to building inspection. It's important to understand that this department operates on a cost recovery basis. This means that the cost of building inspections and permit services are fully funded by the fees collected and generally not by the property taxes. For 2025, we are budgeting about $221,000 in revenue from building permits. This is a significant decrease from 2024, where our actual revenue was $717,000, largely due to the Goodyear plant project. 2025 represents a return to more typical permit volumes, if you can call it typical. Similar, we are projecting $75,000 revenue from septic permits, slightly lower than 2024 budget of $80,000, in line with 2024 actuals of $72,000. There is some speculation there might be an anticipated decrease in permit revenue as we're planning, and so we are planning to transfer $55,000 from obligatory reserves for building inspection to balance the department's budget. This reserve is funded by permit fees collected in previous years that exceeded the department's operational costs, and reserves stabilize the operations of that department for levels of, for service, for years where funding levels are lower due to permanent activity, lower permanent activity. Use of the obligatory reserve is a good example of why we maintain these types of funds to allow us to weather fluctuations in revenue without impacting service delivery or burdening taxpayers. Any questions? Okay. Building inspections continued. We're looking more closely at the wages, department costs. For 2025, we're looking at about $220,000 for full-time wages. This includes the chief building official and building inspector who are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the department. It also includes a 25% allocation for the development services clerk, and 10% for the manager of development services, reflecting time these staff members are dedicated to supporting the building inspection service area. New for 2025, again, as a 10% allocation of the executive administrative system compensation will also be allocated to building services. In addition to the staff costs, building inspections budget includes $48,000 for rent and office supplies. This represents a monthly contribution of approximately $4,000 covering the department's share of office space, utilities, and general overhead costs. And by allocating these costs to from the building inspection budget, we ensure that they are being covered by permit fees rather than the general tax dollar.
I'm just wondering, do we have a projection of how long this downturn in the building market will be? Is it looking like 1 year, 2 years, 4 years? Any idea?
We did discuss this during our budget process. The only conclusion I came to was that 1 year isn't a trend yet. But Jake may have some prognostication he would like to do.
Yes, through Reeve Wise, in regards to Deputy Reeve Davison's inquiry, it's just really hard. I mean, if you turn on, the news right now, really understanding where we're going to be 1 year, 2 year, 3, 4 years out is, I don't have a glass oracle that's any more accurate than anyone else's right now. It's really up in the air. Obviously, interest rates would come down and maybe spur on building. Obviously, during the pandemic, when we essentially had 0% interest rates across the board, we built a lot of new homes because it was cheap money. But I mean, economically, if we find ourselves in a severe recession based on moves being made, not just in Canada, but around the world, and dealing with global headwinds that we apparently are going to deal with, We could find ourselves really, not issuing a lot of permits, just based on our economy sort of receding year by year. It's really a tough call, Deputy Reeve Davison, and I think we're going to have to do this year by year. And we tried to create a budget this year that was more reflective of the reality that we're faced this year. So, and that's I can't remember ever having created a deficit budget within the building department, but that's what we've done this year. So I hope I'm wrong.
Reeve Wise, if I may, the only thing to the Deputy Reeve's comment that I'd like to add would be from a provincial legislative perspective, Council, I do see that trend continuing in facilitating new builds throughout the province. I don't want to cite all the acts that we've seen in the last few years, but we're familiar with the cutting red tape bills and more homes faster and 1.5 million homes over, so 150 homes a year. All that political policy change at the provincial level still seems consistent moving forward, and I have no inclination that there's going to be any change from harmonizing codes, reducing red tape associated with government and streamlining process to try to facilitate as many builds as we possibly can, which would then assist, of course, with these numbers into the future, pending economic upturn.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone else? Go ahead, Jason.
Just give me a moment here. Moving on to bylaw enforcement, animal control, livestock compensation, and fence viewing. We're going to try to deal with all those all at the same time. Bylaw, these are mostly provided by services that are primarily delivered through contracted service agreements. In 2023, the township introduced administrative monetary penalties, or AMPs, for certain bylaw infractions. AMPs allow us to resolve issues more efficiently and effectively than traditional prosecution methods, and they also generate some revenue. 2024 AMP revenue was $5,000. For 2025, we are budgeting a total of $44,000 for contracted bylaw enforcement and animal control services. This covers the cost of our service agreements and ensures that we have the necessary resources to respond to complaints, conduct investigations, and enforce municipal bylaws. Animal control specifically, in particular, is a vital role in promoting responsible pet ownership, preventing animal cruelty and neglect. Livestock compensation and fence viewing are less frequent services, but nonetheless are important in supporting the agriculture community. And by budgeting for these, we ensure that we can respond to the needs as they arise. Next is roads administration. Take a look at some of our revenue sources anticipated in 2025. We have included a line item for potential federal grant for the Canada Summer Students jobs. We typically will have 2 full-time students to assist in public works during the summer months. Again, a great opportunity to provide valuable work experience, and in our community also supporting the roads maintenance efforts during our busy summer season. Other revenue sources for this budget is $5,000 received from the Ministry of Natural Resources for pits and quarries operations within the township. This is a per ton stipend for the municipality for every ton of gravel sold from privately owned operations. Next slide. Another revenue source is $50,000 we anticipate from providing winter maintenance to the Township of Addington Highlands. Specifically, the revenue is generated from our agreement to maintain County Road 41 south of Highway 7 that falls within Addington Highlands. Our public works team is responsible for plowing, salting, and sanding this stretch of the road in the winter months, and we bill Addington Highlands for this service based on the time and materials involved. In 2024, we generated around $30,000 for this agreement. 2025, we have budgeted about $50,000 based on the potential for more severe weather. However, it's crucial to understand that revenue is highly dependent on the weather. Milder winter could result in less work and a harsher winter could result in more. So it's a common challenge. You'll see that theme in budgeting for winter road maintenance. Again, the agreement is mutually beneficial, allows us to utilize staff and equipment efficiently, and another opportunity to utilize staff and equipment in the winter months and generating revenue that helps offset our own maintenance costs, and at the same time provides adding hands to the cost-effective way of ensuring that this road is maintained and passable for their residents.
I'm just wondering, so last year it was 30,000, this year we're budgeting for 50. Is there something that I'm missing here? Like, that's quite a hike up. I know it's weather dependent, but that's quite a difference.
Jeff will respond to that.
Through you, Reeve-Wise, good question. We've budgeted 50,000 for probably the last 5 or 6 years on that stretch, and sometimes we hit the 50,000 or 40,000. It's all weather dependent, and it's if we spend it, we bill it. So if we don't spend it, we don't bill it. So does that make sense?
Okay. Again, on the roads administration and continued, we move into wages, which is not a small number, I guess. For 2025, we have budgeted around $680,000 for full-time wages. This is the overall Public Works Department wage costs that are allocated specifically to maintaining, repairing our townships, municipal roads. In 2024, the actual costs in this area was $695, and so this budget represents a slight decrease, and this is largely due to how we're allocating some costs between this and our constructions budget, so it's part of a bigger number. It's also important to note that the 2025 budget also includes provision for a potential new technical support role in the Public Works Department. We have included 6 months of wages for this portion, for this position in the budget, but this is pending council's approval. And if approved, the technical expertise and support for this role will be coming back to council for review at a later date. In addition to our full-time staff, we also have $20,000 for part-time and wages. This will allow us to hire the 2 summer students spoken of earlier for 4 months to help with the various roads projects and maintenance tasks. Our public works staff, our team, is our largest group. Work hard, often in challenging conditions, to keep our roads safe and well maintained. Continuing on. The roads budget also includes several important contracted services. For 2025, we have a budget of $40,000 in this area. A portion of this budget is allocated to tree removal services. While the public works staff are capable of handling many tree-related issues, so there's times when bringing in specialized contractors, particularly for large or dangerous trees, require advanced equipment or expertise. Another important contracted services is crane and hoist inspections. We operate pieces of heavy equipment in the Public Works Department, including cranes and hoists used to lift and moving materials. Regular inspections of equipment is essential to ensure safety of our staff and comply with provincial regulations. Another expense under roads administration is our legal costs. For 2025, we have allocated about $10,000 to cover legal expenses related to roads issues. Yep.
Yeah, I wonder, Jeff, under the contracted services, tree removal, you've budgeted a little more than last year's actual. Did you take into account all these ash trees that we're going to have to deal with? Do you not think that that would increase that a little bit? Or what was your thinking on that, Jeff?
Thank you. Through you, Reeve-Wise, good question again. Yes, there is a lot of dead ash, but we haven't got an inventory, and the county does not have an inventory. So this is only municipal roads. So a lot of the trees that you see in your travels are county roads. So that'll be a separate invoice. It'll be above and beyond the contract maintenance that we have with the county. So it'll be at their direction and cost of which ones to do and when.
Thanks, Jeff. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you. I believe our last slide for roads administration, there's a budget in our investment in conventions and training for 2025. We have budgeted around 35,000 for this area, up from 25,000 in 2024. This increase reflects a commitment to public works staff having the knowledge, skills, and certificates necessary to perform their job safely and effectively. One of the key areas is updating first aid, CPR certifications for all staff. And then in addition, there's the safety training, also budgeting for conferences and conventions. Ontario Good Roads Conference, for example, is an annual event that was well attended. And we also send staff to road school, which provides specialized training to various aspects of road construction and maintenance. And again, ongoing education is critical for this team. Any questions? Moving into roads equipment. Public Works Department has a number of tools and equipment that they use to do their job effectively. For 2025, there's a budget of $270,000 for the repairs and maintenance of our existing equipment and fleet. This includes regular services to wear parts, any necessary repairs to keeping our trucks, plows, and other machinery in working condition. In 2024, we budgeted the same amount and ended up spending about $259,000, indicating that the budget in this area was fairly accurate. In addition to maintaining our current fleet, the 2025 also includes new equipment and vehicles. We have allocated a $1.6 million for capital purchases in this area. A part of this is $1.1 million of equipment that was ordered in 2024, but will be delivered and paid for in 2025. So this includes the tandem truck, a roller, and a half-ton. And these purchases are part of ongoing fleet renewal and ensuring that we have reliable and efficient equipment to serve the community, and is monies that came forward from last year as well. The remaining $535,000 is capital expenditures for new equipment to be ordered in 2025. Tractor mower, a skid steer, a pole grader, a crew cab truck, and a heavy hoist for lifting. At this time, we don't have the ability to lift some of our bigger vehicles to get underneath them. And so that's proposed for this year. Any questions on roads equipment?
Having this hoist is going to allow us to do some maintenance we've been outsourcing, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
Through you, revise, yeah, it gives our mechanic, fleet supervisor the ability to, especially with the new regulations on safeties and timing that way, where all the wheels have to be pulled. He can lift the truck, pull them all together. It will be more time efficient for him as well.
What's the life expectancy on that piece of equipment?
I'm not familiar. I know South Frontenac they have two actually in their public works garage. One for over 10 years now, but I would expect 20, 25 years, as long as that's passing inspections, annual inspections.
Great, thank you for that.
And just curious, the pull grader, Jeff, where would you use that and what would pull it?
So we have one now. It works really well for this time of year, and a lot more efficient than running graders around. It basically helps dry the roads out. We've used it for cutting ice, and that tandem, so it's a tandem that pulls it, that tandem can probably do a third of our gravel roads in one day. So, and staff really likes it, I guess you could say. Yeah, it really helped during some of the ice and the freeze thaw, and drying the gravel roads out, getting around quicker. So it'll be a second one added to the fleet, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think some of our folks went over to Rideau Township and saw one in action before he purchased it, which I think is very, very wise. And that was something that was learned about at the Good Roads Conference, was it not, about this device?
Yeah, through Revise, it was one of our colleagues from Rideau Lakes, Dan Chant, that invited us over to look, and our supervisor and one of the lead hands went over and they took some videos, and it'll travel 25 kilometers an hour cutting the road, and it smoothed it out pretty nicely for what it was, so.
Good, interesting, thank you. Go ahead, yeah. Yeah, sorry. No?
Okay,
Yeah, okay, we're good.
yep. Trying to remember which slides I'm on again. 310, again, in addition to the expenditures discussed, the roads equipment budget also includes significant transfer to our reserves. For 2025, we are proposing to transfer $495,000 into our roads equipment reserve. This transfer is based on budget estimates of surplus that will be generated through machine time revenue of our own equipment, offset against the actual expenditures. In other words, when a public works department uses township-owned equipment to complete work, they charge the cost of that equipment use to the relevant project or department. Revenues generated from those internal charges result in revenues that we transfer to reserves. Yeah. Any questions about that process? Moving into roads construction capital, it's important to again highlight that we have a significant role that grants play in funding roads infrastructure investment. For 2025, we anticipate receiving about $350,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly known as the gas tax. This federal program provides dedicated funding for local infrastructure projects with a focus on projects that promote economic growth and clean environment, strong communities. The CCBF allocation for 2025 starts with a base amount of $256,000. However, again, we just want to remind that 108 is deducted for the final loan repayment, leaving us with about 148,000. And then we are adding 200,000 in deferred revenue from previous year to bring our CCBF funding from 2025 to 348,000. In addition to the federal funding, we also expect to receive 337,000 from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. This provincial program provides stable, predictable funding for core infrastructure projects, helping municipalities plan and budget more effectively. In 2025, our OCIF allocation of $250,000 is actually $44,000 less than we received in 2024. However, we are supplementing this with $87,000 in deferred revenues for 2024, bringing the OCIF funding in 2025 to $337,000. Again, using the deferred revenue in both CCBF and OCIF is a strategic choice. And allows us to offset some of the costs that would normally hit the tax levy. And again, these grants are not necessarily bonus or extra money. They're a core part of how we fund roads infrastructure. Without these dedicated funding sources, we'd be forced to either drastically cut back on roads investment or significantly increase our tax rates. Any questions? Roads construction capital continued. Roads construction has a number of components to it and specific investments for projects planned in 2025. Basic essential element for roads maintenance is granular materials. This includes sand, gravel, sand, or stone from that form the base and surface of many of our roads. And for 2025, we've budgeted $285,000 for granular materials. This budget covers the cost of crushing and extracting these minerals for both township-owned and private quarries. And having a reliable supply of high-quality granular materials is essential for both regular road maintenance operations and our capital construction projects. Another component of our 2025 capital plan is surface treatment. There's an allocation of $450,000 for surface treatment projects on several key roads. German Road will receive microservicing. Again, this involves applying a thin, durable layer of asphalt and fine aggregates to existing road surface, extending the life and improving the ride quality. Freeman Road, a section of Mountain Road will receive a double surface treatment. This process involves spraying the road with asphalt binder, then embedding aggregate into the binder and creating a fresh, durable driving surface. Another section of Mountain Road will receive a single treatment that's similar to the double treatment, but only involves one layer of the binder and aggregate. The surface treatment projects are cost-effective ways to maintain and improve our paved roads, protecting the underlying infrastructure and providing safe and smooth rides for vehicles. Finally, for 2025, the budget includes $70,000 for engineering services. This budget will cover the design and planning work for 3 major projects: the replacement of the Flynn Bridge, which is already underway, a comprehensive road needs study, which I believe we're going to be looking to partner with the county as they do the same thing in this year. So hopefully there's some scales of economy in joining in that process with them. And then preparation for the possible replacement or the impending need for Donovan Bridge. Construction for Donovan Bridge is not planned for 2025, but this gets some of the work done in preparation for that potential need. Any questions? Bridges are not cheap is one thing I just want to just sort of highlight there. It's not entirely.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Switching over to roads county administration, in addition to maintaining our own municipal roads, Township of Stone Mills also has an agreement with Lennox and Addington County to maintain county roads within our boundaries. This budget work falls under the County Roads Administration Program area. For 2025, we anticipate receiving about $1 million from the county for these services. Excuse me. This is the same base allocation we received in 2024, indicating that the scope and cost of our county maintenance responsibilities are expected to remain the same. It's important to understand that the revenue from county is not entirely a windfall, but rather a contracted payment for specific services for Public Works Department provided under our ongoing agreement through the TAC agreement. We do, through that agreement, have responsibilities for routine maintenance and of the designated county roads. Excuse me. The arrangement is beneficial for both the county and the township. For the county, it allows them to leverage our local resources and expertise on their roads rather than having their own crew, and it results in faster response time, better local knowledge, and ultimately higher levels of service for roads users. For the township, the contract provides a reliable source that helps offset the costs of our Public Works Department by taking on these additional responsibilities. We better utilize staff and equipment and achieve economies of scale, ensuring that resources are used as efficiently as possible. Of course, taking on this work also comes at a cost to running the machines, and we ensure that we are adequately staffed and equipped to handle this added work and meeting our maintenance obligations to that equipment. Any questions? Roads County Administration continued. We have allocated about $230,000 for full-time Public Works staff wages to county road responsibilities. This represents the portion of our staff time and efforts dedicated to maintaining county roads under our agreement. In addition to the full-time staff, the 2025 budget also includes $75,000 for part-time wages related to county roads work. This slight increase from $69,000 budget in 2024, but is in line with the actuals for 2024, where it was $69,303. A significant portion of these part-time wages is related to our night patrol operations. These are staff who monitor overnight during winter months and ensure that the snow or ice issues are identified and addressed promptly. In previous years, these costs of night patrols were not always captured in this service area, and for 2025, we have made some efforts to tie these costs more directly into these accounts. And the change in accounting practices will provide a picture of more true costs of our county roads maintenance and ensure that we are recovering these costs through our contract. Any questions on that slide? Roads County Administration continued again. We have budgeted $350,000 for machine time charges related to county road work. This figure represents costs related to using township-owned equipment such as trucks, plows, and graders on county road maintenance tasks. Similar to our labor allocations, the machine times are based on tracking and reporting of equipment usage. Every hour that a piece of township equipment is used on a county road is logged and charged to the county contract at a predetermined rate. It is important to note these charges are not like an entire profit center, but these rates recover the true cost of owning and operating the equipment, including factors like fuel, maintenance, depreciation, and insurance. By charging these costs, the county will ensure that the township rates are not being the cost of maintaining county roads. Again, I said this earlier, but one of the important factors that cause fluctuation in machine time is the severity of winter season. In years of heavy snowfall and prolonged periods of cold weather, or plows and other winter control equipment will be used more frequently. Another major cost in our county road maintenance operations is the winter control materials, specifically for sand and salt. In 2025, we have budgeted about $250,000 for these materials. And under the agreement with the county, the cost of these sands are split. Costs of sand is split 50-50, and for salt, it's split 70-30. The county covering a larger share, correct, Jeff? Because the split ratios reflect the fact that salt is more expensive material than sand, and it is primarily used on higher trafficked county roads. Like our equipment charges, sand and salt costs can vary significantly based on the winter conditions. That's the disclaimer that we keep attaching to winter maintenance. Frequent winter events and ice events will require more materials and application, driving up costs if that were to happen. Any questions on county administration? Roads County Administration. Landfills and recycling. In 2024, garbage bag tags were increased from $2 to $3, with 2/3 of the revenue dedicated to waste reserves and future landfill liabilities and remediation. Part-time wages for landfill attendants across the township are budgeted at $115,000, ensuring proper site management and waste handling. And in preparation for the 2026 Household Hazardous Waste Day, $7,000 is being allocated from each landfill site for a total of $30,000. These funds will be transferred in the Hazardous Waste Reserve, and an additional $30,000 will be budgeted for the tax levy in 2026 to cover the anticipated $60,000 cost for this event. Go ahead.
Just a curiosity, I mean, we know that the hazardous waste days are very, very pricey. Who do we, I'm assuming there's only a handful of companies that handle that sort of thing as well. I seem to recall in our last budget last year, the year before, we were going to discuss the possibility of partnering up with one of the neighboring townships and maybe rotate through and see if there was any sort of a partnership that could save us a few bucks there. Was that something we ever explored at all?
Through you, we've revised, yes, we did, and I know South Frontenac has their own depot, but it's through a contracted company in Western Ontario. There's one in Loyalist as well that's not affiliated with the municipality, but our residents are able, and it's listed on our website, to go to that site as well. But as far as partnering, there was no contractor in the area that, because you had to go through everybody's license and everybody's, and it was just too busy of a day to bring that many municipalities together to do it in one location.
No problem, just glad you looked into it. It's always worth checking, right?
Recycling and Circular Materials Ontario. Township is working with Circular Materials Ontario to update its recycling program. CMO is expected to recover, I believe, $7,500 for each recycling area, supporting ongoing recycling initiatives and operational costs. Effective July 1st, 2025, the township will be implementing a new recycling model and funding stream in collaboration with CMO. Okay. Moving to Parks and Recreation. The township has applied again for Canada Summer Student Grants to hire students for grass cutting. The cost share between Parks and Recreation and the Roads Department. A total of $230,000 will be transferred from obligatory reserves, parkland reserves for various projects. $20,000 for well maintenance, building upgrades and electrical improvements to the Yarker Ball Diamond. A tentative $200,000 for design and equipment procurement and installation at Yarker Riverside Park, and $10,000 for tree planting initiatives enhancing green spaces and biodiversity in parks. Any questions? That's on the revenue side. Again, going into full-time wages, our full-time wages of $33,000 represents the seasonal allocation of the arena supervisor salary, ensuring that our arena operations are well supported during peak times. And then there's part-time wages of about $40,000. In 2024, we budgeted $36,000, with the actual costs, actual spending of $9,000. The increase this year reflects the reallocation of funds from other departments to Parks and Recreation. So there's numbers that were in other budget areas that are now more accurately reflected. Summer student positions, there's positions to assist with grounds maintenance and landscaping from the May to August summer season. And we also have an allocation to oversee the pickleball programming and support of softball association preparing township ball fields.
Could you just go back to that last statement about pickleball and softball? And just say that again.
We would be utilizing a student to support both of those areas.
Okay, good, thank you.
Parks and Recreation continue. Our 2025 budget allocation for materials and supplies and capital projects. We have $30,000 under the materials and supplies. This allocation covers items such as playground repairs, consumables, and facilities maintenance. Additionally, we have earmarked $10,000 for tree planting, funded through that reserve fund. And then capital land improvements. Again, this is on the expense side, where the Riverside Park would be invested in, and then the Yarker Ball Diamond would be upgraded through some building upgrades, electrical improvements, and well maintenance. Any questions? Swim program, again, this is a program that we help administer, and it's not a significant budget item, but it is an intentional one. For 2025, there's a $3,000 allocated to provide incentives for the swim program staff, and the amount is slight decrease from $4,000 from last year. I believe that was based on just utilization from last year was lower in that funding area, and then $1,500 designated for lifeguard certification program training. Go ahead.
Just on the lifeguard certification, did we get to train someone locally to be a lifeguard last year? Just curious if that happened, if there was lots of applicants, because it's definitely something that we all know that we need.
Yes, through Reeve-Wise. I believe, so last year they had the same 2 lifeguards that they had the previous year. And I believe one of the lifeguards got the ability through, training, to basically train lifeguards. And I believe that that was paid for actually through the swim program, but not through township, donations to the swim program, if that makes any sense.
No, thank you. That's good for us long-term to have a trainer who can do the training. And
Yes, through Reeve-Wise. For your information, last year was the first time in several years that we were able to find lifeguards without putting some absorbent, like signing bonus required. So it was refreshing to not need to put thousands of dollars extra on the table to hire a lifeguard. And as council may know, especially after the pandemic, it was really difficult to find qualified lifeguards to staff these swim programs. So hopefully we've gotten over the hump on that.
Okay, on the Stone Mills Recreation Center, on the revenue side of the equation, financial allocations and revenue streams for this facility. Provincial grants is approximately 50,000. I keep saying approximately when it says 50,000. It's just a tick, I guess. We have secured a community preparedness grant for 50,000 to fund a backup generator for the Stone Mills Recreation Center. This grant is potentially going to enhance the functionality of that building so that it can remain operational and be safe during an emergency. So it's a potential boon to our emergency preparedness. ICE rental revenue is 185,000. This line item represents the projected ICE rental revenue for the calendar year in 2024, which is achieved revenues of 180,000, and we expect a slight decrease this year. These funds support maintenance and operations of our ice facilities and continued availability for skating and hockey and other ice-related activities. Internal transfers, arena roof repairs, 31,000, funded through transfers from the solar revenue account. Arena backup generator, 48,000, funded by the CVA grant. These transfers are, again, important for maintaining the integrity of the building and the reliability of the facility overall. Transfers from reserves is 248,000, again, to contribute to the roof repairs. And we are also looking at updating or replacing our ice resurfacer, funded from the dedicated ice resurfacer reserve account. Yeah, so these transfers from reserves have necessary and the necessary funds address major repairs, equipment updates, while minimizing impact on our current budget.
Yeah, Jake, would there be any income from the sale of the Olympia then, if we do that replacement?
Through your advice, yeah, if we did put it on surplus, then we would get some dollars for it. I wouldn't expect a lot. I think somebody mentioned maybe around $10,000 if it went on gov deals, similar to how we've done other, surplus items like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, moving on to wages. Full-time wages, 46,000. This amount covers the seasonal portion of the arena supervisor's salary, ensuring that we have effective management of our arena during peak usage periods. Part-time, this is to support 3 facility operators, 4 student attendants during the winter season, and 1 summer student. These roles are essential for, again, ongoing operations of this facility throughout the year. Hydro. This building has a pretty big hydro bill and it gets its own line item for that. $90,000, and our actual from 2024 was $89,000. Any questions?
This is just going back a bit. I'm back to, sorry to do this, talking about the overseeing the summer students, helping with the softball and pickleball programs. We don't seem to have a lot of volunteers stepping forward for soccer, which we used to. There was a really, really good soccer program back in Tamworth, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside because of lack of volunteers. Is this something that we could roll over to a summer student?
I would suggest we would need direction of council on the scope of services we're going to provide. Are we, we've tried to maintain from a recreation point of view that we provide access to functioning and well-maintained facilities, whether they be fields or arenas. But at this time, we are not widely running recreation programs on behalf of the community.
What are the summer students doing with the softball and the pickle? What's their role?
That's, there's some cash handling happening as a result of the pickleball program, and then there's some field maintenance that's happening on the part of softball. They're not actually running the softball program.
Jake?
Yes, Sir Reeve Weiss. A little surprised to hear about a dwindling soccer program. I was told by Mr. Atkins, who runs the Tamworth soccer program, they had record numbers last year. Our recreation students, their role would be historically their role that they've always had. At the pickleball, they literally, basically opened the building, oversaw the program, accepted cash, and the recreation students that were working basically in field maintenance, they're cutting the lawns and they're weed eating, and that and the like. They're definitely not at this point in time coordinating softball.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, and just on that, I did see that we're going to have a recreation master plan in 2026 too, and that will give a full chance to kind of review where we see our role, where we should be, and I think that's great. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Carry on, Jason.
Thank you. Through you, Revise. We're going to continue. We're moving into rooftop solar project. This is outlines some of the financial allocations related to that project. Projected revenue is around $90,000. Represents anticipated revenue generated from this solar project contributing to the municipal funds. A portion of the solar revenue will be allocated to repair and maintenance of the arena roof, ensuring the facility remains safe and operational. And then $53,000 will be transferred to building reserves, an account in support of future projects. Specifically, we do have an anticipated need for construction of a larger road salt dome, and so putting some money away for that will hopefully help with that in the future. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious about that one. I think that's great. I know there was some discussion about the possibility of this last year, and glad to see that it's showing back up. Is this is a significant chunk of panels, so I'm assuming it wouldn't be a net metering. Are we being remunerated per kilowatt hour, or is it, that is what it is? It is, how large is this system? I'm just curious.
Jake? Is it 250 kilowatts?
Yeah, I'd have to check my numbers if you were to ask me how big our array is out there. I'd have to check it exactly what kilowatt hours. I can't tell council off the top of my head.
That's no problem.
It's on the south side of those two buildings out there. I actually didn't oversee the installation of them, so the numbers escape me.
It was under the old FIT and microfit program. It was a FIT program. I think it's 70 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah, that's Huge.
something like that, 70 or 72.
I don't believe it's a net metering.
No.
agreement. It's a
contract.
It's a contract.
That's great. No, I was just curious about that. Thank you very much.
And it runs out, the contract runs out. I don't know, we're halfway through Blue Earth. Where are we in terms of how many more years for the rooftop?
Yeah, 3-year revise. It was a 20-year contract, as I recall, signed in 2011. That would run you to 2031.
Thank you.
My
Yes.
apologies. No, sorry.
And that
Go
would be at 80 cents, as I recall, per kilowatt.
Yeah, I think it's 70. The
I see.
microfit gets 80.
Right,
That's what I get
70.
for mine, yeah.
Sorry.
Well-
Hey, see where the confusion's coming from. I see Stone Mills Rec Center, and then I see rooftop solar project. Then I see roof. You're talking about a project that's been completed. I thought this was conversation about the Stone Mills Rec Center getting solar panels on the roof. That was something we talked about last year. This has been inserted in the middle of a couple things. I'm wondering what I'm seeing here. Okay.
It's where the money's going.
Okay, gotcha.
That
Sorry.
90,000 revenue from our rooftop solar will go to arena roof repairs and
Okay.
transfer to reserve.
All right, because the way I read, this is a projected revenue from, from an existing solar project. I thought this was about, because there was conversation last year about putting panels on the arena because the roof needed work, and so
Yeah.
I thought this was in reference to that.
Okay.
Okay, not a problem, thank you.
Good, that's clear. Yes,
And
Jason?
through revise, just to Councillor Fenwick's clarification point from last year's budget, I believe that was all associated with a grant that we'd made application for, where we were looking at energy efficiencies with the build as a whole, an upgrade to a electric Zamboni or resurfacer, charging stations, and that whole suite included the rooftop solar array at the rink. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in that grant, so that's why you will probably not see it throughout tonight's budget.
Right.
And just to add to that, that grant application, which I would have applied for, didn't include new solar panels on the roof. I was told by a roofing company that assessed the roof that you would want to completely redo the roof with a brand new sheet steel roof before you ever put new panels on it. And something like that would be pretty cost prohibitive to putting solar panels on that roof at this point in time. If that makes any more sense, council.
Okay, we're all clear? All right. Was there another question? Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, carry on.
Moving on to general planning. I don't know if my mic was off the whole time or not. So revenue sources within general planning for 2025 are based on the application fees and development related processes. Minor variances, we anticipate approximately 5 applications, totaling at $5,000. Actual for 2024 was $4,250. Consents and severances, $30,000 based on 30 applications at $1,000 per file. The 2024 actuals are significantly exceeded projections at $50,000, reflecting strong demand for severances last year. But we're not, I guess, expecting the same kind of volume this year. And then zoning certificates, fees collected for zoning compliance letters, often requested by solicitors during land transfers and other property dealings. Any questions on this? Okay. I just clicked the wrong button. I'm on the wrong slide. Here we go. Then general planning continued. We have our wages, full-time wages of $111,000, covers 90% of the salary of the manager of development services, ensuring the department has leadership and managing planning applications and land use policy effectively. Legal fees, with increasing complexity in the Planning Act and a higher likelihood of appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal, this budget has been proactively adjusted to ensure the township has additional funds for legal matters. We'll talk about legal later in the presentation as a corporate consideration. And then we also set aside $10,000 for consulting fees, applies to professional consulting services to support development services operations and providing expertise when needed for planning and land use matters. Any questions? Moving into property maintenance. We have, on the revenue side, internal transfers of 48,000. This amount is generated through the building department to support facility maintenance and operational costs. Transfers, and then that's, again, what I referred to earlier on the rent piece of, believe it's $4,000 a month. Transfers from reserves, 122,000. We're expecting to use 7,500 to fund a new well to support reliable water at Newburgh Hall. Enterprise Community Hall, 150,000, upgrading, doing major upgrades, including insulation, siding, window replacements to improve efficiency and extend the life of the building. Property maintenance continued. Key expenditures allocated for maintaining and improving properties here are 160,000 for contracted services. This fund's allocated essential operations, including well water testing, snow removal, cleaning, electrical, lighting, maintenance, heating and plumbing repairs, security, alarm services, septic pumping, and other necessary building maintenance work. And then capital investments, again, this is on the expense side for the well at Newburgh Hall, and then the building upgrades to the Enterprise Community Hall. Medical centers. We have two line items here: lease rental revenue, 2,400. The township supports local health care by offering competitive and potentially lower than market rate leases for the practitioners at both Newburgh and Tamworth. This helps to hopefully attract and maintain our current levels of medical services. We are also building up a transfer to reserves, $20,000 that was allocated in the past from the COVID relief reserve is being proposed to be redirected to the physician reserve as we don't anticipate the need for COVID-related allocations anytime in the near future. And then $7,500 for the new well in the Newburgh Medical Center. Any questions? That would bring our, we won't touch on the well again, but the physician recruitment reserve by, we would be adding the $20,000 to the existing reserve in hopes to support the future recruitment and retention of our medical professionals in the area. This will, again, this is an amount that's going to be transferred from the COVID relief reserve and spinning that reserve down so it's no longer on the books. So that's essentially a revenue neutral way of to add funds to a new reserve item. We're on the home stretch here. Thank you for everybody's patience and thank you for your questions. But this is the next one, legal summary. I just wanted to touch on this because we did touch on legal in a number of different departments here, but we wanted to also highlight that we do kind of budget, we look at the total area of legal expenses as a total, just to make sure that we're properly funding our legal needs. So they are allocated across multiple departments, ensuring that we have sufficient funding for legal matters. So they are in areas like general administration, council, building, bylaw, animal control, transportation, and planning. At times when we are in legal dealing with legal costs, it is debatable where they end up as a specific allocation, but we do our best to manage that, but we do have an overall budget of $63,000 across all of our areas. The nature of legal matters is very unpredictable and can be relatively economical, whether it's just relying on them for advice or guidance, or if we actually get into a serious matter that requires more support, the costs could go up. And so it's a bit of looking at what we paid in the past and trying to make a good judgment call on how much we should be preparing for any given year. But it is unpredictable in some ways. I don't know if anybody has any question on legal as a total, but just wanted to highlight there is a good amount of money allocated across the organization. So just some conclusions here as we wrap things up. The operational budget sees a modest year-over-year increase of about 1.03%, and that includes our 3% grid movement and those full years wages that were not full years from the previous year. And so that's a relatively modest move. But on the capital budget, we do see about a 29%, almost 30% increase due to infrastructure investments. Notably, I did foreshadow, bridges are expensive. The Flynn Bridge replacement is not a small piece, but is a necessary piece. An additional some vehicle purchase initially budgeted in 2024 that were delayed are now being received in 2025, impacting some of these current year's expenditures. And then things like police services costs and insurance costs increased from we had $77,000 increase over last year from police services. Just some things that we're all aware of that have pushed some of these numbers up. But if we go into the next slide, we kind of just get some really high-level numbers. On the operating side, we are expecting about $11 million in operational expenses. That is offsetted by grants, revenues, and permits, and investments and fees by almost $6 million, leaving about $5.3 million to hit the tax levy. And then on the capital side, we're looking at about $5 million with capital revenues of $3.2 million offsetting, and then $1.7 million hitting the tax levy. So if we kind of boil that down and just look at some of the township-wide numbers, the municipality itself has experienced a 1.68 increase in growth, and therefore putting all these through kind of the calculations with the proposed budget, we're looking at a tax increase from 2024 to 2025 at 4.55%. The 2024 actual budget, our budget was 6.6 million. The 2025 budget is looking at about 7.1 million. Therefore, from a year-over-year budget increase, we're looking at 457,000 growth, a change from one year to the next. And then continuing, an average property assessment of 220,000 in 2024 was billed at $1,400, and then in 2025 would be billed at $1,543, an increase of $67 annually. And then for just per $100,000 in assessment, we're looking at a difference of in 2024 it was $18.30 or $18.30. For 2025, it's $30.53. And then continuing on in the conclusion, we touched on this earlier. The budget has been prepared during a period of ongoing economic uncertainty, potential tariff impacts, external financial pressures that may influence the cost of materials and services throughout the year, potentially put some of these numbers at risk where our buying power at the end of the year may be less than what it is today, putting pressures on some of the projects proposed and some of the purchases that are expected. I would also add that additionally Buy Canada initiative would potentially further impact pricing as we choose to favor Canadian services over other services that may be cheaper if that's what comes through in a policy or guidance to our purchasing. So these negative challenges, we've tried to take a balanced approach to predicting that, leveraging grants, reserves, and tax revenue to ensure a certain amount of stability while working to minimize our taxpayer impact. And we've tried to maintain essential services that the residents rely on, ensure fiscal responsibility by carefully managing available revenues and resources, and sustain long-term planning to support future infrastructure and service needs. And then just on our last official slide, there's the municipal tax rate comparison. When examining a 4.55% municipal tax rate increase for 2025, we took a look at our surrounding communities where we knew what our past tax rate changes were. And we've kind of calculated, I've calculated two overall averages to try and be fair in comparing ourselves to others. There's an overall regional average of 6.81%. That's just taking all available numbers and trying to average them. But there's also an adjusted average where we exclude the extreme values being the highest and the lowest values to provide a more balanced representation of typical tax increases, which puts it at 5.36%. And our 4.55% increase is below both of those numbers and is competitive, I guess, if you want to call it competitive with our neighbors. That brings me to the end of the formal part of this presentation. I don't know if there's any lingering questions that didn't get answered. I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Go ahead, Councillor Milligan.
I just have a quick question, and I apologize if, I think this would be for Anita, if you don't have this information in your head. But I wonder how much is outstanding with our property taxes, approximately.
Sorry, I don't have that right off the top of my head. I can get back to you on that.
I'm just curious with the state of our economy. I'm sure it's probably getting worse each year. Just curious.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Land.
This is also for Anita. Thank you very, very much for doing this overview. It's been an important feature that we can share with the ratepayers to see that we're below consistently, except for 2023. And that's really nice to be able to share that with them. Thank you very much.
Through you, Reeve Weiss, I just want to say that it's been a team effort between all management and current staff that we've been able to compile and research and provide you with this and the general public to be transparent.
Yes, I'm sure there's been many meetings. Go ahead, Councillor Fenley.
Yes, and you make a great point, Councillor Lund. I too would like to thank everybody on the management team. I know this is no fun, but this particular budget, and last year's was excellent too, it's just so easy to comprehend. And if it's easy to understand, it's easy to understand where everything comes from. And for not only for me, but I bet you the average person would find this pretty straightforward as well. So thank you. It's very well done. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Woodcock.
I want to go way back to like one of the slides at the beginning. It took me a while to warm up. It came up early and I wasn't ready to talk. So strategic planning budget, I would like to see that be a little higher. I know it's at 30,000. It's coming from reserves. It's not going to affect the tax rate. And my thinking on that is that this is something that's going to be last 10 years, say. I do know part of it is to improve engagement, and I think in a rural place that is quite large, the ability to have town halls and roundtable discussions and skilled facilitators can get a lot more wealth out of like local knowledge. So I'm not set in stone on that, but when I think of some of the big things like physician recruitment that we want to talk about, what is our role in economic development? For me, I'm like, what is the role of art and culture in here? What does that look like? I'm open-minded, I'm not going to push it too hard, but I would like it to be a little more in that to allow that kind of public engagement. If we have better public engagement, it means like more buy-in, more voices, and it also means more people who are like ready to help implement the things that come out of it. So that's just my only part. It came up early and I wasn't ready to speak to it, but that's just the one thing for me. But otherwise, yeah, thank you everybody.
very thorough, everything, so.
Thank you. Anyone? Councillor McDonald.
Yes, I agree with everyone. I think this is a really, really well put together budget. 2024, we really came in you guys really came in a beautiful assessment, 18.30 cents. So just a little more than doubling that with a year, and definitely knowing, like, I'm really surprised because I knew our police was going to be really high, and the capital expenses for our equipment, it goes up every year. So I'm really pleased with this. I thought it was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Deputy Reeve Davis.
I have a question for Anita. First of all, I think everybody's echoed it, and I'll echo the same words. It's good work that's been done. Bit of a shock at the huge increase, okay, over other years, but everybody's sharing that same shock from the looks of things. My question is, though, what does 1% get, Anita? Is it 50,000, 60,000? What is 1% of the tax rate raise? The 1 mil, I guess.
Through you, Reeve-Wise, 1% would be approximately 68,000.
68,000, okay, thank you.
And I just want to add that there's context to that number as well. It depends on which 68 we would be referring to in the budget, because because we rely on either grants or reserves or user fees in a mix of a number of line items. If that 68,000 was targeted to it would have to be targeted strategically on things that are specifically hitting the tax rate. For instance, in Public Works, much of our projects are offset by either monies that are allocated from county work or OCIF or CCBF. So a dollar saved there does not necessarily translate to a dollar saved at the tax levy. So it's just putting that caveat that $67,000 isn't necessarily $67,000 in a specific line item.
Glenn.
I hate to say this, but I have to leave.
Oh, that's too bad. You got called in. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I did want to thank everybody for all their hard work on the grants and applying for those and fighting for those. I know that it's a lot of work to put these together, and sometimes they don't happen. And you don't get any reward for things that don't happen, and you just move on to the next one. But I know a lot of grants came through. I know it takes a ton of time to put that stuff together. And there's no guarantees on any of it. So thank you so much for all that hard work in the grants. And I know the ratepayers appreciate it too. It's a big, big difference. What would our rates be? What would our rate hike be without these grants? It'd be shocking. So it's from the hard work of management and staff. So thank you again.
Indeed, I echo that. Anyone else? So we do have, in case anybody's still watching, an opportunity for the public. We'll have a public meeting at the start of our next council meeting where you can comment on the budget, ask questions about it, and so on. So that's coming up next Monday. And what else do you need, Brandy, from council this evening?
Through you, Reeve-Wise, if Councillor Woodcock wanted to put a motion on the floor about increasing the budget, because there will be a change in the numbers, so if you want to make that a formal motion, we can include that in the minutes and bring back the adjusted numbers.
Does anyone have a thought on a number? I'd say 35 or 40 for me. Is there any interest in that as an idea? Is there?
What is the price now?
It's 30.
You want to increase it by another 35 or 40?
No, just 235 or 40. Yeah, not that big of a strategic plan.
Bringing in federal consultants. All the time.
A town hall in every street.
I guess the question I would have, if council doesn't mind, is how did we come up with the 30,000 number, and what are we expecting to get for 30,000?
Yeah. That's a good question. It is based on some preliminary research into other areas. It is, I would say that we are aware that we are asking for a lot in 2025 around some planning and studies that typically you don't see that many in one given year. We are trying to do as much as we can in this year to kind of do some foundational work going forward. And so I would say I was on the conservative side of allocating that money. I guess I won't know until we go out to an RFP what the actual bids are and what's within the budget. I would potentially suggest that if we do find that additional revenue is required over and above what's been allocated through the budget process, that staff would come back with a report and a recommendation and request additional funds because these are coming out of reserve funds, and we weren't planning we didn't want to hit the tax rate, and we do have modernization funds that we wanted to use for this. And so unless the desire is to increase the rate and have that increase be part of the tax calculation, they wouldn't substantially change the tax rate increase for 2025 and could be approved by another method later in the year should we need to come back.
Go ahead, Councillor Woodcock.
Yeah, that's completely satisfactory to me. What I would like is a little bit to know that you have that wiggle room, and depending, because if you get a really great RFP answer that hits the things, but it's more just, that's fine with me, the idea that we can come back and know that I'm going to be in favor depending on what that proposal looks like, and that flexibility alone is satisfactory to me. So.
That's great. It will come from reserves, and we can allocate a bit more at that time. Anyone else?
So if you want to just do the motion as it is on the agenda, then we can do that.
That means I have to go back onto my agenda.
Sure, let me know.
No, it's okay. Just being a jerk. Okay, so this would refer to all the motion that I read out at the start, which I think you're well aware of. So I just need a mover and a seconder for that recommended motion. Councillor Milligan and Councillor Woodcock, any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. And I guess we need a motion to adjourn. We don't need a confirmation bylaw for this one, so a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Woodcock, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks very much, and thanks, staff, for your attendance. That was pretty good, 2 hours.